I'm sure most of you already know this, but we have an amazing opportunity to change the world, an opportunity to help hundreds of millions of people, potentially, maybe 1 billion people, to have a better life. And everybody in this room could be an important part of that. Of course, changing the world isn't easy. It's never been easy, as far as I know. But just, it's possible, right? That's amazing. So let me start with a disclosure. So me and my colleagues, we run the health website, dietdoctor.com, the largest low-carb and keto site in the world. How many people have visited it sometime? Okay, cool. Thanks. So it's funded by an optional membership section, and our goal is to empower people by making low-carb simple. We take no industry money, we show no ads, and we sell no products. So today I want to talk about 3 things. And the first one is the mistake behind the obesity epidemic. Second thing, how surprisingly hard it is to fix this mistake, even when we know what needs to be done. And number 3, a possible solution to this problem. So let's start with number 1. And there are many ways to start this story, but let's start it in 1984. You know, the year that George Orwell wrote about in his novel about Big Brother, which is fitting because in the same year, the American government decided to launch a big campaign to teach people how to think about food. What food to eat and what food to be afraid of. You're supposed to be afraid of fat, right? Eggs, meat, all kinds of old-fashioned natural foods. And a lot of people inspired by this, despite lack of evidence, started to eat fake foods, where you remove the fat and you add more sugar instead, more refined carbohydrates that raise the blood sugar and the insulin levels, the fat-storing hormone. So more sugar when you eat less fat. And this is what happened to obesity rates in America. This is 1985. So the blue states, you have around 10% obesity. Move ahead to 1991, and something is happening. Dark blue states turn up with over 15% obesity, so a huge increase even there. 1997, yellow states with over 20% obesity. 2003, orange states, over 25% obesity. 2009, red states with over 30% obesity, and now dark brown states with over 35% obesity. So obesity has become common in just a few decades, and kids are affected too, right? And so obesity rates tripled in just 1 generation, making America great, at least in size. And like the heavyweight champion of the world at the top of the rankings, right? So you're showing the way for the rest of the world, and we're all following you into this interesting predicament. So I'm from Sweden. It's actually a little bit down. We're a bit behind you down here. And yeah, 12% obesity in Sweden, which means that 88% of Swedes still look like this. Which is not sure if that's a good thing or not, but yeah, that's ABBA. So on a more serious note, it's not just about obesity, because this is far more serious, actually, diabetes. So diabetes is diseases where you have too much sugar in the blood, sugar that comes from the food that you eat. And back in the 80s, there used to be 30 million people with type 2 diabetes in the world. So how many people do we have today with diabetes? 420 million, 13 times more in this short time. And it keeps going up. It's exploding in India, China, all over the world. So in a few decades, it's going to be way past 500 million people. And these people are expected to just get worse every year, to get complications like Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, cancer, amputations, kidney disease. We have to fix this problem. It can't wait. So what people are saying is that the way to lose weight or reverse your diabetes, if it's even possible, is to eat less and exercise more. And that's exactly what we've been saying to people for 30 years while it's going in the entirely wrong direction, right? So what do? Well, the idea today is that maybe we can fix this with a final surgical solution, where we simply operate on people so that they can't eat too much, right? So gastric bypass surgery and similar surgeries are getting super common in the world. And while they're super effective in the short term, I think we have to really think about whether this is the right way to go. Because is there really a disease inside those organs where we operate? The stomach, the part of the stomach that we operate, take away, or the part of the intestines that we take away or reconnect somehow? No, right? These are healthy organs that we are operating on. So in a way, we're trying to surgically adapt our bodies to better handle the industrial food supply, instead of doing the opposite, meaning adapting the food to our bodies, which would seem to be more reasonable. Of course, the common argument for this kind of thing is that the people who end up on the operating table, they have already tested everything, right? There's nothing else to do. They've tested all the diets. Only surgery remains. But it's not true. I've heard so many stories from people where it's not been true. And this is just one of them. This is Johanna Engström. When she was in her 40s, she felt she had struggled with her weight for long enough. And she decided, these surgeries seems like the right thing for me. And her doctor agreed. So she got set up on the waiting list. And when the time came, she went to the hospital. She checked into the hospital. And the next morning, early, she was going to be rolled into surgery. But that night in the hospital, she had some kind of panic attack. She really felt that this was wrong for her. And she felt that she simply couldn't go through with it. So she went out to the people in the ward and she said, "I'm truly sorry, really, really sorry. I don't know what to do, but I can't go through with this. You simply have to give the surgery to someone else." And then she went home. And the next day, she started to eat a low-carb, high-fat diet, which is something that she'd been considering for a long time, but never gave it a serious try. And she even asked her doctor, "Is this right for me, low-carb?" And her doctor said, "No. It's just a fad diet. Doesn't work long-term. It's dangerous. Don't do it." But she did it anyway. And in 1 year, she lost more than 100 pounds without being hungry. And this is what she looked like in a makeover sort of story. And she did this with all her healthy organs intact, right? And she's really proud of herself for that. And I would think a lot of people should be given the opportunity and the support and the knowledge. And at least, the doctor shouldn't tell them not to try it. Why? Why not? Well, a lot of people, healthcare professionals, I'm a family doctor, and I used to be guilty of this myself. We think or thought that eating an omelette for breakfast is extreme. It's too extreme to recommend in the healthcare system. So instead, we recommend operating on healthy organs, cutting them out, by the thousands, right? Because this food that people have been eating for thousands or millions of years is obviously too extreme or dangerous to even consider recommending. So that's how crazy the world is today. It really is that way. And if we don't look out, it can get worse, because people who do these surgeries, they tend to lose a tremendous amount of weight in the first year. But what happens after that? If they keep living the way they used to live, the weight starts coming back. And it's not uncommon for people to gain back most of the weight again, maybe even all the weight, maybe even more than that. And what do? So people are experimenting with different options because, it's all found in surgery or pills. So for example, Some people have been experimenting with brain electrodes into the reward centers of the brain, trying to tell the brain not to want to eat food, right? And really nothing says 1984 quite as much as brain electrodes telling you what to want, right? Not a great idea. They even tried to put this in a pill, but it ended up, so people wouldn't feel like eating. But it turned out they didn't feel like doing anything. They got depressed, and some killed themselves, and they had to take away that pill. So maybe that's not the solution. So what is? I'm embarrassed to say that the next option comes from my country, from Sweden. It's FDA approved now in the US. It's a tube that you put into your stomach, hanging out underneath your clothes. So the idea is you eat the food that you want to eat, and then once you're finished, you go to the bathroom, you pull out the tube, and you pour the contents into the toilet. Well, this is happening in the US right now. So, of course, it's like surgically, prescribed bulimia. It really is. And what really makes me smile, it's sad, but still can't help smiling, because why are these surgeons putting a tube into the stomach? There's already a tube into the stomach, right? We already have one. It's called the esophagus. So I don't recommend bulimia, but if you're going to do that, then why pay for expensive, dangerous surgery? I don't know. Fortunately, there might be an even better idea. Fortunately, how about just eating real food? So this is a friend of mine called Ronnie Mattison, and a few years ago, he asked on his Facebook page, is it possible to lose 20 pounds in 10 weeks? And a friend answered him that, yeah, it's possible with low carb, high fat. So Ronnie decided, I'm going to try this. And he did something unusual. He took a picture of himself in his underwear, before and after. And then he put these pictures into his computer and had it calculate what it looks like in between. So it becomes like a movie, a morph, right? Let's see how it looks. This is Ronnie eating all he needs except sugar and starch, no hunger. And the fat sort of melts away. Pretty cool, right? This is from the side. So he lost 70 pounds with no hunger in a year, and his friend was actually right, because he lost more than 20 pounds in the first 10 weeks. So not saying it works this well for everybody, but it works really well for a lot of people. And at least people should be given the chance, I think, to try this. Because it's not just a few stories. It's not just even hundreds or thousands of stories. There's even the best quality, gold standard evidence that we have, randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of scientific studies, comparing low carb to conventional today, low fat, low calorie diets for weight loss. And there's been dozens of these studies. And I did a list of these a few years ago, comparing the ones who show, a clear winner, statistically significantly better results with one diet. And there were 20 studies showing better results with low carb. How many with low fat? None. 0, yeah. So 20 to 0. That's pretty bad, considering low fat is still what we recommend, low calorie. And a few weeks ago, I talked at a conference in England, put up by the Public Health Collaboration, a collection of doctors, an organization by doctors, and they did a similar review of all the studies. And they found a little bit more studies now, 29 actually, but it's still 29 to 0. So that's pretty amazing. And I think actually today, a lot of people are starting to accept this, that low-carb diets are effective for weight loss. And that's not really what's holding people back today. What's holding people back is that it's perceived still to be dangerous, right? The cholesterol thing, the heart disease thing, that wasn't really proved back in the 80s. How about now? Actually, when you look at all the evidence, when you do systematic reviews of all the evidence, there is really nothing there. So, for example, a few years ago, scientists looked at all the observational evidence, meaning when you when you look at how people eat and you compare it to whether they get sick or not. And they found no evidence in all of science to say that people who ate a lot of butter got any less healthy than other people. So there's nothing there. And if you look at the gold standard evidence, the interventional trials, where you take a group of people, put them on less fat and compare it to a group with more fat, and you make that trial go on for a year or 2 or 3 or more, and you look at all these trials and you put them together, the result is that replacing saturated fat with unsaturated fat is unlikely to have any positive effect, meaning no effect on heart disease, no effect on how long you're going to live, right? This is from the summary of the review. And they say that these findings have implications for current dietary recommendations. And of course, scientists, they're all careful with how they express themselves. But what they mean by implications is that current dietary recommendations are wrong. And not just a little bit wrong, but completely wrong, rotten at the core. Because it's all based on this old faulty idea that fat is bad for you, but it's not. And a lot of people are waking up to it. So in the 80s, cholesterol was the bad guy. A few years ago, Time had this cover. I'm sure many of you have seen it. So it says, "Eat butter." And scientists labeled fat the enemy, why they were wrong. So that's the mistake behind the obesity epidemic. We know the mistake behind it. Fat was never a problem, and carbs can be a problem for obesity and diabetes. So why is it so hard to fix this? Did any of you read this? I'm sure many of you did, right? So this summer, the American Heart Association said that coconut oil is really dangerous for you. It's saturated, just like butter. And that's, we said it's dangerous for 30 years. We're going to keep saying it's dangerous. It's unbelievable, right? Study after study showing no effect, and they keep saying what they used to say. And some people claim that, so the American Heart Association, just by coincidence, a few months earlier, they got $700 million from the soybean manufacturers, and that's why. But I don't think that's it. That is the only reason. I think there's a deeper reason, and that is that it takes a long time for humans to change their minds, and actually most people never do. If they really, really, truly believe in something, they never change their minds. And this has been shown over and over again. So this guy is called Ignaz Semmelweis. He was a Hungarian obstetrician back in the 19th century, and back then there was a huge problem in the cities in Europe, because when women came to the hospital to give birth, after giving birth, they often died. They got a fever, got sicker and sicker, and a few days later they died. So 10%, maybe up to 25% of women this happened to. So incredible tragedies. And Ignaz Semmelweis, he got an idea. He noticed that when doctors went to the morgue to autopsy patients, and then they went to examine women, they died even more often. And he thought, maybe there is some sort of particles on these dead bodies that end up on the hands of the physicians, and then they take them to the women that they examine. And this really sounded crazy, because they didn't know about bacteria or infections, right? They had no conception of it. So everybody thought, that's crazy, Semmelweis can't be it. But he was in charge of a ward, and he decided, hey, to get into my ward, you will have to wash your hands with chloride. And this is what happened. So these infections, these death rates just plummeted, right? Actually, if a physician washed his hand 10 times, he or she saved the lives of 1 woman. It's pretty amazing, right? Return on investment. Yeah, but they didn't, because it all sounded crazy, too crazy. And obviously, doctors don't have dirty hands. We know that. So they kept, doing what they did, and women kept dying. Semmelweis ended up in a mental hospital, where he died. And it took decades until people knew about bacteria, and it started to make sense. And I thought, wow, maybe Semmelweis was right. So they put him on a postage stamp. Guess it's something, at least, for his efforts. Yeah. But this is the way it usually goes. It takes decades. So how can it do that? A person who's smarter than me, a physicist called Max Planck, he said something famous. He said that a new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die, and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it. So maybe we'll have to wait for everybody to die. How long is that going to take? Will it be 2030? Will it be 2050? How long will they live? I don't know. If they eat soybean oil, maybe they will die a little bit earlier. Not sure. Anyway, there are lots of Semmelweises alive today. Anyway, these are some of my personal heroes. So we have, yeah. And they're sort of all spread out across the world. So Gary Taubes, of course, is going to speak at this conference. He's one of my personal heroes and one of the reasons why I'm here today. His book, Good Calories, Bad Calories, and many other things that he's done. And he also started a research organization to fund research into low carb. Fortunately, they are dependent on rich sponsors, and when they pull their support, it's hard to do that. So we'll see how it goes. Nina Teicholz, of course, another real hero, great book called The Big Fat Surprise. And she's trying to lobby politicians and other people in Washington, which is like almost mission impossible, I think. But if she's successful, it could certainly be extremely influential. So good luck to her. And then we have Dr. Annika Dahlqvist in Sweden up there. Yeah, many people have heard that story, I'm sure. She tried low carb herself, lost her excess weight, felt great, and then she started a blog and got a lot of attention, ended up in the media, and TV, and a lot of dietitians got afraid and thought, hey, if a lot of Swedes start to eat butter again, what's going to happen? Obviously, everybody's going to die from heart disease. We know that. So they notified the National Board of Health and Welfare who started an investigation. And this took 2 years, up until 2008. And when they came to their conclusion, they said, hey, it's OK. Keep doing what you're doing, because low carb is compatible with science and best practice. So that was really influential in Sweden. That's when low carb really took off in Sweden. And it's still going strong. So then we have Professor Tim Noakes, of course, in South Africa, who's been hugely influential in making people in South Africa wake up to the potential of low carb to help people with metabolic syndrome. Unfortunately, he tweeted a tweet. He tweeted a tweet a few years ago and ended up in court for years, 3 years. And then they came to the conclusion this spring and said, you're innocent, keep doing what you're doing. But that got appealed. So he's back in court, God knows for how long, for one tweet. So that's what can happen. And what's even more bizarre, perhaps, if it's possible, is Dr. Gary Fettke in Australia, an orthopedic surgeon. He got fed up with having to amputate people's legs left and right, for diabetes. So he read up on it and he decided, hey, it seems possible to use a low-carb diet to improve your diabetes, and then maybe I won't have to amputate people's legs. So he started telling people to do that, and it went really well. He didn't have to amputate a lot of legs. But his professional association, he got notified, somebody reported him for inappropriately curing someone with diabetes. So here we have a doctor who's inappropriately curing people. Let's not do that, right? So they said, you can no longer talk about nutrition with your patients or in the media. Or we might, do something bad, take away your medical license or something. That's amazing, right? Because they felt that, hey, he's just a doctor. What does he know about nutrition? He shouldn't say anything about nutrition, which is, I guess, fair enough. I guess he, like me, we all learned it after medical school. So, but anyway, Gary Fetke, he keeps talking to his patients. He keeps talking in the media. He refuses to be silenced. So he's another brave hero today. But anyway, these guys, they're all spread out. We're all spread out across the world. It's really hard to make a big impact. Not only because it's hard for people to change their minds, but also because there is such a resistance from these guys, right? These companies making billions and billions of dollars on the status quo, they don't want to change and have to, redo all their food products, or when it comes to pharmaceutical companies, what happens if people go and inappropriately cures people? It's really bad for business, right? These people with diabetes, they are supposed to eat their drugs every day for the rest of their lives, right? It's super good. They're very good customers, so don't interfere with it. Yeah, so it's hard. It's hard to fix it for these reasons. But what about a possible solution to this? How could we empower people everywhere to revolutionize their health? Victor Hugo may have said it best. This is a famous quote. He said that all the forces in the world are not so powerful as an idea whose time has come. Right? You've all heard it, I'm sure. And even these guys are not that powerful. They can all be swept away by a change from the bottom up. When people demand it, it's going to happen, if enough people demand it. So how do we speed this up? How do we fuel it? Because we have something that's been proven to work in the best gold standard quality science there is. We have lots and lots of stories of people who've done this over and over and over again. Black swans in, how many, I don't know. We have 500 people that have sent their, before and after pictures and stories to our site. And that's just a small piece of all the thousands, maybe, hundreds of thousands, perhaps, of stories on the internet, right? And really, what we need, the only thing we need is real food that is, available basically anywhere. And we have the internet, which makes it free to spread this knowledge anywhere in the world. So I'm thinking, perhaps there is a way, indulge me. Let's say we build all that people and their doctors need to make low carb simple. All the guides, all the recipes, the meal plans, the, get started, 1, 2, 3, do this, and all the troubleshooting and all the social networking that they could need and all that stuff to inspire each other. And let's say we make the organization trustworthy and we make it inspiring, delicious, fun even to do this, and then put it online for free. And then we translate it to every major language in the world. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, the good news, I think, is that this is very doable. It's free to spread it. All we have to do is build it. And that might only take the work of a few dozen people, or maybe a few hundred people. And another piece of good news is that we already have sort of a model for how we could fund this. And we already started doing it, and it seems to be working. So it's exciting. Definitely it's exciting. I'm going to talk more about it. But even though we have all this resistance from all these players, but they can all be swept away by an idea whose time has come. Maybe the time has come for a high-fat diet. So how many people have read this little thing? Anybody? A few? Yeah? So this is a big report from an investment bank in Switzerland called Credit Suisse, a big company. And they came up with this report 2 years ago saying that, well, it's called Fat, the New Health Paradigm. And they say that, hey, fat is apparently not dangerous at all. And people are starting to understand that. So if you have money to invest, you should invest it in companies that produce high-fat foods. And you should take it away from companies that produce sugary foods. Do you think they were right? This is a picture from Sweden, where I come from, a few years back. It's a truck driver getting arrested for smuggling butter across the border. So why would someone smuggle butter into a country? Well, it's because the stores are all out of it, and the people, they want more. So, yeah. And this spread over into our neighboring country of Norway and ended up on the Colbert Report, but this terrible tragedy of a butter shortage in Norway. But it didn't start there. Stop there. Yeah, this is a newspaper ad from Norway. If you buy this luxury Audi car for $300,000, they will give you a pound of butter for free. And it keeps going, you know. There's been a butter shortage in Canada, yeah, and this spring, actually, a butter shortage in Australia, yeah. And then this summer, oh no, a butter shortage in France. And actually last week, there's a butter shortage coming up in all of the continent of Europe. We're running out. It's never been so expensive with butter because, you know, demand keeps outstripping supply. So, yeah, we might need to stockpile back home. Maybe this is a sign that this is an idea whose time has come, and that no forces in the world are powerful enough to stop. So, of course, we all have stories about how we ended up in this room. Briefly, just about me for a minute. I got obsessed with this 15 years ago, back in 2002. I was 2 years out of med school. I had had 1 week of nutrition training in med school, and nobody taught me about insulin and blood sugar in that kind of way. And I read a couple of books about it, and it seemed like it made so much sense. And yet, I knew nothing about it. And it seemed like this is something that could help a tremendous amount of patients of mine. So I started trying it after, you know, reading the science, testing it on myself and my family, and I started trying it on my patients, and something extraordinary happened. You know, I was used to people coming, you know, they need more drugs. Every year, the numbers are slightly worse, and often you put them on another drug for diabetes or blood pressure or something. But now, when I told them to go on low carb, the opposite happened. They came back and they were sort of younger. At least they were happier, and they didn't need as many drugs. You could take it away. So that was amazing to me. And I read more and more about this. I had a girlfriend back then, and she said, Andreas, you know, we're going to have to stop talking about carbohydrates for a while. I really can't handle it anymore. We have to talk about other things too. So that relationship didn't last long. But my love affair with low-carb diets is still going strong. So don't feel bad for me. Anyway, in 2007, I read Gary Taub's book, Good Calories, Bad Calories. I had already read all his science and New York Times articles and so on. And that was sort of matrix kind of thing, swallowing the red pill. The pieces fell into place. And I mean, of course, that book might not be 100% right about everything, but it really made me see things in a new way. And I started thinking, you know, that's a thick book. How many people have read it? Good Calories, Bad Calories. Good job, guys. So I thought, you know, what if I've read it several times, but that's just, you know, how crazy I am. What if I could write a way thinner, simpler book in Swedish? So I started going, and then I thought, you know, how about start a blog? It's, you know, simpler. Let's get started. So I started a blog in Swedish 10 years ago. It's called Kostdoktorn, and that means diet doctor in Swedish. And this has been an exciting journey for me because, I mean, I knew nothing about writing. Lots of people write better than I do. You know, lots of people dress better than I do, which could be important because, you know, lots of blogs back then, they were about the daily outfits that the people were wearing. This is Kinsa, the most popular blogger in Sweden. So I thought, you know, hey, if I do the same thing, I'm going to be equally, you know, massive. And I have so many visitors. But unfortunately, that turned out to be a bad idea. So I had to go back to stuff that I actually know something about, which is diet and science and health, boring stuff, really. But still, boring stuff, but still, in a month, 500 people were visiting this little website every day. And a year later, 5,000 people. And I thought, wow, this is exciting. This is something else than talking to one person at a time, right? And a few years later, 50,000 people every day. Wow, yeah, so I had to think, there are not that many Swedes left. Well, there are a few, of course, but I thought, hey, there's nothing really awesome. Back then, at least, there was nothing really awesome in English. I thought, why not start an English site as well? So I got the dietdoctor.com address, and I started that one, and that started to take off. And I got a few people to help me out. I was working part-time. My brother was working part-time in the company, and so on. A few people were helping out as freelancers. And it was an exciting journey. Where would it end? But I had like a choice to make, I think, because this is where I used to work as a family doctor, a Swedish clinic, and I was there every day trying to, or most days, working part-time, trying to help one person at a time, and that's really great, right? But what if you believe that you could help 10 people in the same amount of time? Maybe in the future, 100 people, or 1,000 people, or even more in the same time. Can you still stay there and do it? I kind of felt that if I believed in that, and I did, then I had to quit, so I did, 2.5 years ago. And I decided, I'm just going to focus on doing this company right and making as big of a difference as is possible. So, yeah, now we're a whole team, not just me. We have 220,000 visits every day. Every day, that's insane, right? Thank you. I'm still kind of amazed by that. Making it the biggest low-carb or keto site in the world. And we try to make low-carb simple for people. We supply free recipes for, what you may want. We supply success stories. People send us success stories, and they're always, to me, amazing to read. We have hundreds and hundreds of people who have sent us those. And we have, free guides, what kind of vegetables should you eat if you're on low carb? Do you know? If not, you can check it out on our site. And how do you do a keto diet right? A really strict low carb diet? You can find that out. You can find these meal plans where, this is new for this year, really trying to make low carb simple. So what's hard about it? Well, I think the number one thing is, what should I eat tonight? So we thought, hey, what if you get everything? What if you get a weekly meal plan and you get a shopping list and you get everything? So like this shopping list. And now you can choose how many people you want to serve, and you can switch any meal, you can skip any meal, and this sort of adapts. So it's kind of cool what you can do on the internet. We have tons of video, movies, interviews, presentations, video courses, and so on. That's, I think, great. We're trying to make it like the low-carb version of Netflix. You see, might be a slight influence there. So when we started this, we thought, we don't want to have ads. We don't want to sell any products. We're going to try to keep it as unbiased as we can. So we thought, should we do donations? Maybe that's not going to be effective enough. So we thought, okay, so we do a membership. We have everything that people need is free, and then some bonus stuff is for members, and that's free for a month too. After that, it's $9 a month, so it's like Netflix or Spotify, or these kind of things. And a lot of people said when we got started that this is never going to work. Absolutely not. Because there's so much free stuff on the internet. Nobody pays for anything on the internet. Although Netflix are doing well. Anyway, so 3 years we did this, and we're actually up to 37,000 members. So thank you for that. That's pretty awesome. And our members, they are the ones who make it possible, this thing. So we went from 18,000 supporting members in January to 37,000 now. It's really exciting. And it used to be me and a couple of people working part-time. Now we're 14 people full-time, and lots of people freelancing and helping us out. Several of them are here in the audience tonight, I'm sure. I mean, we have our awesome video team who's recording everything, going to put it online in super high quality. So Jorgos, Simon, Jill, Matthias, and we have writers. Some of them are here in the audience, like Jenny Callahan and Christy Sullivan and Dr. Evelyn Borderoy and other people around the world. So it's a big team now, which is, but it's still very small, really, compared to the challenge. Because the challenge is enormous, right? How do we even make a dent in this? 500 million people must be impossible. But it's not. It's really not. It's not impossible, because it can all turn around with an idea whose time has come. All we need to do is spread that idea. So what if all these heroes of mine could have even more support, like editors and video people making fantastic productions with them, recipe people, making it simple for people to get started, putting it online for free if you need it. That's what we're trying to do, and keep building on this. And this is what could happen to 1 billion people.
I'll just kind of start with the beginning. I always struggled with weight.
I just need to tell people I have been on a number of diets.
By this time, I was on 2 different diabetic medications.
I used to really feel like the weight was like some kind of moral failing.
It's hard. It's hard because people are saying it's not good for you, you shouldn't do that.
I had tried everything by the book.
Here's another doctor. He's going to tell me I need to eat 800 calories and exercise an hour a day.
Every diet I've been on, they always tell me, lower your fat.
I came across the low carb, high fat thing. I tried it for 2 weeks. I tried it.
So what happened?
Then the weight started to come down, and in a year I lost 64 pounds.
And that is where I lost the most weight without being hungry.
2.5 years later, I went from 374 pounds to 139 pounds. No surgery.
That's incredible.
No surgery. It is. It's a miracle.
My blood sugar all of a sudden was just rock bottom.
Clicking my belt on the airplane. It's totally different. Totally different.
It's fantastic. The energy. And then the other thing, which is why I'm so sure I won't be on antidepressants again, is the mental clarity I've gained.
I think for me, the biggest benefit, more than the weight, is the mental clarity, the calmness. I don't feel so impulsive. I feel like work-wise, I can be more focused on projects and get through projects better.
It's very hard, I think, to convince people until they can prove it to themselves.
I don't think of it as a diet anymore. It's a lifestyle.
People are amazed at what I've done.
It's pretty amazing, the stories you get to hear. I would love for 1 billion people to be able to experience that thing. And we're going to try to make that happen. So, yeah, we're hiring. Everything we get, all the resources we get are used to build this company and do more faster. So if you go to our website and you scroll to the bottom, you can see a link to the careers page. And we need help from writers, we need help from Spanish translators. We're launching a Spanish site fairly soon, and a lot of other people as well. So, and even if you don't see anything that matches your skills, maybe you can send us an email anyway if you feel that you have something to contribute. And even if you don't want to work with us, maybe you have ideas for how we can do this better, faster, help more people, make low carb simple. You can email me at andreas@dietdoctor.com. So like I said in the beginning, we have an amazing opportunity to change the world. Because 1 billion people will get a better life in the future. It's going to happen whether we are here or not, because eventually scientific truth is going to win out. The problem, like I talked about, is that it usually takes decades. And that's not okay. But together, we can make it happen much faster. So let's do that. Let's change the world together. Thank you.